Welcome to MindBank Audios, where every listen makes your mind richer. Ever heard of a person who has millions but no one knows anything about them? About a man who doesn't flaunt or brag about his wealth, but lives with freedom, peace of mind, and financial stability? In this video, we'll reveal the secrets of the quiet millionaire, that person who built their wealth in silence and made unexpected decisions that led them to true financial success. Stay with me until the end because what you'll discover here might change your life forever. Chapter 1. The calm that new millionaires don't understand. In a world where people shout about their wealth and announce their success at every corner, there was another kind of person. People who aren't seen in magazines or followed by cameras, but who possess unimaginable fortunes. They are the quiet millionaires. But who are they, and why did they choose silence as their path to riches? At the beginning of this chapter, the author tells us about his visit to an upscale neighborhood in an American city where the houses were luxurious and the cars were fancy. The surprise, however, was that most of these people had nothing but crippling debt. They had appearances with no substance. In contrast, he met a family who lived in a modest home, drove a normal car, and didn't wear luxury brands. Yet their bank accounts were full of zeros. These people chose the path of calm. They don't spend to please others, but rather save, invest, and build their wealth step by step with silence and confidence. The author adds that the quiet millionaire isn't affected by social pressure and doesn't try to prove anything to people. They know that the true value of money isn't in showing off, but in freedom. Freedom from debt, freedom from worry, and freedom from the need to please anyone. The chapter concludes with a question for the reader. Are you seeking wealth for others or for yourself? Chapter 2. Why they don't show up. You might wonder why the quiet millionaire isn't on social media platforms. Why don't they buy a fancy car or wear flashy watches or talk about their investments? It's because calmness is a lifestyle. And the first lesson of true wealth is that there's no need to convince anyone of your wealth. The author tells a story about a successful businessman named John, who owned a chain of small, profitable companies. He wore simple shirts and sat in the same cafe every morning. No one would have guessed he was a millionaire. He was once asked why he didn't buy a luxury car, and he replied, "I buy what serves my life, not what serves people's perception of me." This lesson alone was enough to change the author's life. The quiet millionaire doesn't seek to appear, they seek results. Chapter 3. Wealth isn't a look, it's a mindset. In this chapter, the author takes you to a fundamental idea, that wealth doesn't start in the bank, but in the head. The mindset of the quiet millionaire is completely different from that of those impressed by appearances. They make their decisions based on numbers, not emotions, on the long term, not the immediate moment. They see spending as a tool, not a pleasure, and money as a means to freedom, not for bragging. The author talks about Eliza, a businesswoman who started from scratch. Whenever she got extra money, she didn't think, "What should I buy?" but rather asked herself, "How can I invest it?" Eliza said, "I used to postpone pleasure to invest in my future, and now I live a comfortable life while others are paying off their debts." Freedom doesn't come from a high salary, but from a sound financial mindset. Chapter 5. Invest in simplicity. Here, the author begins with a profound statement that money loves calmness and thrives in simplicity. The quiet millionaire doesn't burden themselves with complexity, but builds a simple yet powerful system. He talks about a man named Dave, who every month allocated a percentage of his income for savings and a small percentage for investing in low-risk funds. He wasn't a stock market expert and didn't follow the markets every day, but he was consistent. The result? After 15 years, he had enough to retire at the age of 50. Simplicity isn't poverty, it's a clever lifestyle, and the quiet millionaire understands that well. Chapter 6. The long game is the secret of the silent rich. In a world that glorifies instant results and feeds on quick wealth, the Quiet Millionaire comes to tell you the real game isn't about speed, but about consistency. This chapter talks about the power of a long-term vision. The important thing isn't how much you earn this month, but how much you'll own in 10 years. The author shares the story of Jesse, an ordinary young man who worked as a tech employee with a limited income, but he had one habit. He invested 25% of his monthly income since he was 22. In the beginning, things were slow, but after 10 years, his investment portfolio was worth more than what his high-salaried friends owned. The secret is time plus patience plus smart investment. The Quiet Millionaire doesn't look for a lucky strike but builds their empire quietly, step by step. They are a chess player who thinks beyond the 10th move, not about the first one's glamour. Chapter 7. Don't be the star of the show, be the director behind the scenes. Fame is tempting, isn't it? But the Quiet Millionaire doesn't care about the spotlight because they know that real power is made in the shadows. In this chapter, the author reveals the difference between those who seek to be the stars of the stage and those who run the game from behind the scenes. He tells about a woman named Mary, who founded several successful companies but never gave a single press interview or had an Instagram account. When asked why, she said, "Every minute I spend trying to convince people who I am is a minute I'm not using to build what I want." This golden lesson echoes throughout the book's pages. Calmness creates space for focus, and focus creates wealth. The Quiet Millionaire doesn't look for the number of likes, but about the number of assets that are growing silently. Chapter 8. Don't buy things, buy time. The author says, people think the wealthy buy cars, but the truth is, the wealthy buy freedom. Here he gets into one of the Quiet Millionaire's greatest secrets. They don't spend money to increase their burdens, but to reclaim ownership of their time. The author met Daniel, a businessman who started small. When his money began to increase, he didn't buy a luxury house. Instead, he hired a virtual assistant to organize his time, then an operations manager to run his businesses, and then built systems that brought him income without his direct intervention. The result? He could travel, read, and spend time with his family without his income stopping. Wealth isn't in things, but in the freedom to control your days. Chapter 9. How to stay silent when everyone is screaming. In this chapter, the author puts his finger on one of the greatest virtues the Quiet Millionaire possesses: emotional discipline. When markets crash, people rush to sell. When the market rises, they race to buy, but the Quiet Millionaire stays silent. They know the market is like the sea. Waves come and go, but whoever builds their ship well won't drown no matter how high the waves are. The author tells the story of Nathan, a successful investor who lived through the global economic crisis. While everyone sold their shares, Nathan watched, waited, and then bought at low prices. When the markets recovered, he was one of the biggest winners. The Quiet Millionaire isn't deceived by emotions, but listens to the voice of logic and strategy. Chapter 10. Stability first, then launch. The author says, you can't build a skyscraper on shaky ground. Therefore, the Quiet Millionaire always starts by building a solid foundation, financial stability. Before they invest, before they take a risk, before they start any project, they make sure they have an emergency fund, a stable income, and expenses that are much lower than their income. He tells the story of Emma, who refused dozens of tempting investment opportunities until she had secured her financial stability. When she entered the market, she did so with strength and confidence and wasn't forced to sell at the first crisis. Stability isn't the opposite of ambition, it's the real fuel for smart ambition. Chapter 11. Silent work is more powerful than loud talk. In this chapter, the author puts his finger on one of the greatest virtues the Quiet Millionaire possesses. Let your success speak for you, not your voice. Today, we live in a world that glorifies those who talk more than they achieve. Posts, photos, and empty promises fill the digital space. But the Quiet Millionaire takes a different path. The author tells the story of Chris, a man from whom no one expected anything special. He would arrive at his office early and leave late. He didn't talk much or show anything off. But over 7 years, he was building a small digital empire, one deal after another, step by step. And when his results appeared, he didn't need to tell anyone. His bank account numbers, testimonials, and results took care of it. The lesson? Productive silence is more powerful than empty chatter. Let your work scream while you remain quiet in the background. Chapter 12. Discipline is the golden currency of wealth. You don't need extraordinary talent, you need daily discipline. This is how this powerful chapter begins. The Quiet Millionaire doesn't rely on inspiration, but on a strict, continuous, non-negotiable routine. The author met an investor named Ryan, who was of average intelligence and didn't have fancy degrees. But he woke up every day at 5 a.m., read for half an hour, and then worked on his project for an extra hour before going to his job. He repeated this pattern daily for 3 years, and at the end of the 3rd year, he had launched a successful project and built an investment portfolio worth $500,000. The secret? Daily discipline. This chapter rephrases the concept of success to tell you it's not genius that makes you wealthy, but your small habits that you repeat every day, even when no one is watching. Chapter 13. Protect your focus as you protect your money. Money isn't easily stolen, but focus is. It's stolen every moment. The Quiet Millionaire knows that their most valuable asset isn't their bank account, but their ability to have deep focus. The author tells the story of Laura, an entrepreneur who spent the first 3 hours of her day away from her phone, email, and notifications. She called this period the golden zone, and in it she produced what others couldn't in a full day. This chapter is full of practical techniques: how to use the 30-minute focus x 3 times a day rule, why you should turn off your phone and put it in another room, and how to create a protective system to prevent distraction. The Quiet Millionaire doesn't distract themselves, they build in the depth of focus, which is the ground where all wealth is sown. Chapter 14. Avoid luxury exhaustion and be flexible. In this amazing chapter, the author warns you of a new trap, luxury exhaustion, which is working until you collapse in the name of success, but without a strategy. The Quiet Millionaire isn't like the tired worker who runs aimlessly. They work with focus, then stop to recharge their energy. He tells about a man named Mark, who was earning $200,000 a year but suffered a health breakdown due to constant pressure and stress. When he recovered, he completely changed his philosophy. He started working on a balanced schedule with regular breaks, exercise, and enough sleep. The surprise? His income doubled in 2 years, even though he was working less. The message: success isn't measured by the number of hours, but by the quality of work. And quality requires a healthy body and a relaxed mind. Chapter 15. Habits are the gateway of no return to wealth. If you want to become wealthy, create the habits of the wealthy even before you have the money. This chapter is the gem of the book. The author talks about how a personal identity transforms from "I'm poor" to "I'm a person who thinks like the wealthy." He tells the story of a girl named Hannah who was struggling with accumulated debt and financial chaos. But she started one habit: writing down every expense and keeping a simple financial diary. Then a second habit: reading 10 pages a day from investment books. Then a third habit: allocating 10% of her income to savings. 2 years later, she had paid off her debts and opened her first online store, beginning her journey to financial independence. The great transformation starts with small but consistent steps. The Quiet Millionaire doesn't change suddenly, but reprograms themselves every day through habits. Chapter 16. Think like a financial manager for your life. In this chapter, the author rephrases your relationship with money not as a tool for buying, but as a life management system. The Quiet Millionaire doesn't deal with their income randomly, but like a professional financial manager with a huge company's budget. The author tells the story of Tom, a teacher with a limited salary, but every penny was divided accurately into 4 boxes. 1. Basic needs. 2. Growth, investment, development. 3. Emergency fund. And 4. Reward, fun. After 5 years of this method, he was not only debt-free, but also started his own business and became a financial consultant to others. The message from this chapter is powerful. If you don't manage your money like a company, you will never grow. Freedom starts with control, not with dreams. Chapter 17. Don't sell your time, build assets. In this chapter, the author exposes a harsh truth. Anyone who only sells their time for money will remain poor, no matter how high their wage. The quiet millionaire doesn't build their income on physical presence, but seeks to build assets, things that work and bring in money even while they are sleeping. The key story here is about Nora, a software engineer who had a good salary but noticed her health was deteriorating due to work stress. So she started developing simple applications to sell on online stores. She didn't earn much at first, but after 2 years, one of her apps was bringing in more than her previous monthly salary. This chapter explains the differences between active income, which requires your presence, and passive income, which requires your initial intelligence only. Think about writing a book, building a product, a digital channel, or educational courses. All these are assets that don't exhaust you daily but enrich you gradually.
Chapter 18. True freedom is freedom from people's opinion. This chapter is deeply emotional and touches everyone who is afraid of taking steps because of what others might think. The author tells the story of Ali, a man from a conservative background who decided to leave his bank job to dedicate himself to his e-commerce project. He faced mockery, blame, family pressure, and the threat of failure, but he held on to his convictions and persevered despite the obstacles. 3 years later, he became one of the first young people in his city to achieve a high-dollar income online. The message from this chapter is great. Success isn't just financial, but liberating. It's about being able to make your own decisions without being dictated by the fear of what will they say. The quiet millionaire doesn't ask society for permission. They walk with confidence despite the discouraging voices. Chapter 19. Invest in your mind first before any project. Most people think that the beginning is with money, but the quiet millionaire knows that the real beginning is the mind. The author tells the story of Mahmoud, a young man with a modest job who allocated 20% of his income to buy books, subscribe to courses, and join learning groups. He used to say, "Every dollar I put into my mind comes back to me many times over." And indeed, when it was time to launch his project, he not only had the knowledge, but also a sharp mind, a network of connections, and strategic clarity. The chapter focuses on 3 types of investment. 1. Self-education, books, courses, practical experience. 2. Mental skills, critical thinking, time management, and financial intelligence. And 3. People who push you forward. The message? What you put in your mind today is what will produce your wealth tomorrow. Chapter 20. Make your mission nobler than money for money to come to you. This is one of the deepest chapters of the book, where the author explains that the quiet millionaire doesn't just work for money, but works for a greater personal mission. The story of Rebecca was central here. She didn't start her e-learning project to make money, but because she wanted to improve education in her region. She was passionate, honest, and dedicated to her goal, and over time, people started supporting her, partners came to her, and she profited financially in ways she had never dreamed of. The lesson is, when your goal is noble, money becomes a natural result, not an end. The quiet millionaire doesn't chase money, but chases a deep impact, and money follows them automatically. Chapter 21. Endure the boredom, the hidden secret to wealth. It may seem strange, but the author says that one of the most important qualities of the quiet millionaire is the ability to continue even when everything is boring. He tells us the story of Jason, who started with very small, regular monthly investments. There was no magic, no quick, huge profits. The process was repetitive, boring, and without excitement. But after 10 years, he had an investment portfolio exceeding $300,000. Success, the author says, isn't in the big things that happen suddenly, but in the unrelenting continuation of the small things. The quiet millionaire doesn't need constant motivation. They possess something deeper: discipline. Chapter 22. Make money your student, not your master. In this chapter, the author attacks the toxic relationship most people have with money. Money isn't a master you obey or a constant source of worry. It's just a tool. The quiet millionaire harnesses money to serve their goals, not the other way around. The story of Laura illustrates the idea. She was earning well, but was always anxious, living in constant fear of losing what she had, and became a slave to money without even realizing it. Then she read a quote that changed her life. "You are rich when money is a tool in your hands, not a rope around your neck." So she started to donate, invest, and take moderate risks, transforming from fearful to liberated, and from liberated to truly wealthy. The message is inner freedom from money is the first path to confidently owning it. Chapter 23. The Digital Mindset, a Quiet Opportunity for Infinite Wealth. In this chapter, the author sheds light on a central point. The digital world is the playground of the quiet millionaires. You don't have to own a huge company or a large capital today, but rather have an idea, the internet, and digital courage. The author tells the story of Kareem, a young man from a small village who started publishing educational videos on YouTube and then launched a paid course for more than $10. 3 years later, his monthly income in dollars from thousands of students. The quiet millionaire uses technology cleverly. An educational channel, an ebook, a digital store, or a digital service all are ways to create quiet wealth without noise or debt. Chapter 24. Don't tell everyone your goals. Let them see your results. This chapter talks about the value of privacy on your journey to success. The quiet millionaire doesn't talk much. They don't share their plans with everyone around them. Instead, they work in silence and then surprise everyone with their results. The author tells the story of Salim, who decided to start his startup, but didn't tell anyone except his wife. He worked for 2 years in silence, amidst the mockery of some of his friends who thought he was a failure. In the 3rd year, he received funding from a major company and became a successful manager. The lesson here is profound. Silence is power. Share your dreams with those who support you and keep them from those who mock or underestimate you. The quiet millionaire lets success speak for themselves instead. Chapter 25. A Simple Life, a Free Mind. One of the surprises in this chapter is that the quiet millionaire doesn't live a luxurious life, but lives an organized simplicity that makes their mind light and their feelings balanced. They don't chase appearances, but chase value. The author talks about Joel, a millionaire who lives in a small house, wears the same kind of clothes, and eats simply, but when he enters a meeting room, he runs the show. He doesn't need to show off his wealth because his self-confidence makes him self-sufficient from anything external. The idea here is the more simple you are, the more control you have. And this is what gives the quiet millionaire an inner peace that can't be bought for any amount of money.
Chapter 26. Walk slowly, but never stop. In a world obsessed with speed and instant success, the author talks here about the forgotten virtue of long-term patience. He tells about Marcus, who started building a side income source only at the age of 40, while those around him had started years before but lost their enthusiasm and stopped. Marcus wasn't the fastest, but he was the most consistent. At the age of 50, his income surpassed everyone else's, not because he was a genius, but because he was as constant as a mountain. The quiet millionaire realizes that slowness isn't a defect as long as you don't stop. Don't care if others get ahead of you. The marathon isn't decided in the first kilometer. Chapter 27. Calmness is a strategy, not a weakness. Does calmness mean weakness? The author explodes this false belief in this chapter. He tells about Eva, a businesswoman who didn't talk much in meetings. They thought she was marginal until the day of reckoning came, and she made a bold decision that saved the company. Her calmness wasn't shyness, but focus, observation, and planning. The quiet millionaire doesn't talk a lot. They are like a sniper who doesn't fire their shots aimlessly. They plan in silence, move lightly, and then show up with results that amaze everyone. Chapter 28. Separate yourself from your money. In this deep chapter, the author talks about a common mistake, connecting our personal value to what we own. The quiet millionaire knows that even if they lose money, they won't lose their inner value. He tells us about Daniel, a successful businessman who lost all his wealth in an economic crisis, but he didn't collapse. He didn't say, "I'm a failure," but said, "I went through a failure." He rebuilt himself, and 5 years later, he came back richer than he was, because Daniel wasn't equal to his bank balance. He was equal to his character, his experiences, and his ability to get back up. Money comes and goes, but who you are, that is the real wealth. Chapter 29, When Actions Speak Louder Than Words. In this profound chapter, the Quiet Millionaire opens a rare window for us into one of the most important secrets of solid success, focusing on action, not on bragging about it. The author starts with a shocking question. How many times have you seen a person talk about their big project, but you only see words from this project? He answers that the Quiet Millionaire is the complete opposite. They don't talk much, they work a lot. They don't promise, they deliver. They don't put up a sign for every step, they let the results speak for them. He then tells us a personal story about the beginning of one of his acquaintances, a young man in his 20s who dreamed of becoming wealthy in the field of e-commerce. But instead of getting busy with designing logos and showing his goals on social media, this young man decided to stay silent and start learning and working in secret. In his first year, he didn't earn much, but he continued without making a fuss. And when the money started to come, he didn't announce it. When he founded his company, no one knew his name yet. But after 5 years, he became one of the most important names in his field, not because he talked, but because he acted. The message is clear. Many talk, few deliver, and the rare ones are silent and deliver. The Quiet Millionaire doesn't see achievement as just a means to brag or show off, but considers it a sincere expression of their inner vision. They don't care about the crowds applauding them, but about seeing the effect of their work in the world, in their clients, in their team, and in themselves first. In this chapter, the author emphasizes the power of action in building a reputation. He says that people might be fooled by words one day, but they aren't fooled by repeated action. When people see you fulfilling your promise time after time without showing off, your mental image begins to form in their minds. A reliable person, a person who doesn't exaggerate but delivers. And the author wisely adds, silent action is the greatest advertisement. Yes, in a world teeming with words, action becomes a rare currency. And in a world suffering from fakery, commitment and silent implementation become a revolutionary act. In the end, the Quiet Millionaire asks, do you want to be known as someone who talks a lot or someone who acts a lot? Do you prefer to fill in the blanks with talk or leave your mark on the ground? The choice is clear. Honest, skilled, and continuous action is what makes the difference. There's no need for noise when you have an impact. Chapter 30. The Silence That Builds Trust. In a world that screams all around you, where everyone rushes to show off their achievements everywhere, from social media to meetings, from photos to numbers, the Quiet Millionaire stands firm in their corner. They don't scream, they don't show off, they don't justify. They just work in silence. But why silence? And what's its connection to trust? True trust isn't created by talk, but by inner consistency. Trust doesn't mean you convince others with your words, but that you make them feel your presence. The quiet person who looks you in the eye without worry, talks without exaggeration, and works more than they talk. This is the person we are instinctually drawn to because we realize that behind this calmness, there's something real, authentic, and not fake. The author tells the story of one of his friends, a businessman who didn't appear much at conferences and didn't have a loud presence, but he was the person everyone turned to in times of crisis. They trusted him without him saying much. Why? Because he always did what he said and often did more than he said. This is how his mental image was built. This is how he became a heavyweight in the eyes of others without needing heavy words. In this chapter, the author confirms that people link calmness with trustworthiness. The person who doesn't constantly have to explain themselves suggests that they know what they're doing. The person who doesn't get into arguments to defend their decisions sends an implicit message. I'm confident in my path, and time will prove my decisions right. But this doesn't mean you should always stay still. Calmness doesn't mean rigidity. It means that when you speak, your voice has meaning, and your words are measured and calculated because you don't use many of them. The less you say, the more valuable what you say becomes. In the end, wealth isn't about noise or showing off, but about stability, balance,
and taking silent steps toward clear goals. The quiet millionaire doesn't run after money, but builds themselves with patience and lets money follow them. We hope today's audiobook added value to your journey and left a positive mark on your thoughts. At MindBank Audio, our mission is to inspire, guide, and help you grow every day. If you enjoyed this, make sure to hit subscribe and become part of the MindBank Audio family. Together, we'll keep building richer minds.